We'll move on to the good of the cause. We'll start out, as we usually do, with our student report, but we have a new student, so if you do us the honors and introduce yourself.
Okay. I'm Papa Yao Sentry. I'm a senior at East Brunswick High School, and I'm the student representative for the 2015-2016 school year. So for my first thing today, I'd just like to mention that I'd like to commend the board for fostering student activism. We can see like Shirley and Dennis here. Shirley and Dennis epitomize student activism. They started two of their own clubs, Shirley Perspectives and Dennis EBHS Political Club. And over the course of this year, there's been a lot of student activism between finals and starting new clubs. I've seen a lot of students grow into people like that they weren't before. They've grown into people who are activists. They've grown into people who contribute to the school. Shirley brought up a good point with her gender equity and gender equality for everyone in the township. And Dennis brought up a good point with the EBHS Political Club. The board has allowed us, by moving away from teachers always telling us what to do and always trying to instruct us and moving towards more of independent work, the board has allowed us to form our own ideas and become leaders and allow us to contribute to our community in school. So it's evident in Shirley and evident in Dennis, and I would just like to thank the board for doing this, and ask you to continue to do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to like him.
Yeah.
Welcome.
There any other issues for the good of the cause? Mr. McAvoy.
Yes, Chair of the Tech Committee, and the fact that I do have the time, I found myself going to and observing a couple of the workshops that Mrs. Gulick, Dr. Valesky have put together with regard to technology. I started off right as school ended over at Central School with Mr. Yanazzo, and the workshop was run by Mr. Alexander and Mr. Meyer, and they were on one of my favorite topics of social media. They both Mr. Alexander and Mr. Meyer have championed the Voxer mobile app, and it's a way in which discussions and collaboration can take place on a day-to-day basis, on a minute-to-minute basis. There were even a couple of questions that happened as the workshop was ongoing that they posed to their network of connected educators. And their connected educators range from New Jersey phys ed teachers through all the states in the union, through even a teacher in China who chimed in on this discussion as it was happening in Central School. So I thought that was progressive and dynamic and exciting. Found myself at the high school for Mr. Hussar's web workshop on Google Classroom. And the way Mr. Hussar described it was that oftentimes when you're in the classroom and you create your groups, what you tend to do is you tend to put some of the smart kids with some of the not as smart kids, so that the not as smart kids can advance with the smart kids, keeping it very simple here. But the problem there is that the smart kids don't get the opportunity to advance. So he decided to create a workshop in which he invited all of the teachers who were proficient or somewhat advanced in the Google Classroom. And I think there were somewhere around 35 teachers in the high school media center. It was just a beehive of activity in which all of the teachers were sharing, collaborating, and experimenting with the Google Classroom, and I'm looking forward to when that becomes reality for everyone in the district. And then today I was at another workshop at the high school, and this was run by our English chair, Megan Minetta, in collaboration with Mr. Brian McInerney and Mr. Chaim Cohn, both teachers at the high school. And there were maybe about 45 people at this particular workshop. A lot of them were secretaries, and I was real excited to see that because I had heard there were some problems with secretaries not being happy with going with the Google, and apprehension and nervousness, and so a lot of the animosity, well, not even animosity, but nerves were eased by the way the presentation went, and everyone became very familiar. I know they're going to be doing it again for another 45 teachers come the end of July. So the bottom line is, I think, credit to Mrs. Gulick, and also a credit to you, Dr. Valesky, because you know that every member of this Board of Education is passionate about the way we're going, and it's full steam ahead, and it appears as if we are full steam. Thank you, Dr. Combs.
Thank you.
If I could dovetail
Sure.
on Mr. McAvoy's comments, just for the entire board's edification, we have, and Mr. McAvoy has attended as a member, we have kicked off the instructional council of SNARA's recommendation under the umbrella of the technology, the board's technology committee. We have an instructional council and we have a business council. But the instructional council has already met multiple times and established goals. So we'll be collecting that information, packaging that information, and pushing that back up to the tech committee for review. And then after tech committee has reviewed it, potentially giving a presentation to the entire board about how that process is rolled out and how our staff is beginning to identify priorities and needs for their own professional development. So it's an entirely new approach to us listening to the staff and responding to the staff and putting the resources in the hands of the right people so we can effectively deploy this. And along with Mr. Leopold's guidance and leadership, we'll have a completely new focus for our technology department.
That's exciting. Exciting. Mrs. Becker.
I just have a question, Kevin. I was interested in what you were talking about in terms of, I think it was Mr. Huzar's workshop. You were describing a situation in terms of pairing kids of varying abilities. How would the Google Classroom app be applicable to that situation? How could it help?
Well, I think what's going to happen is, through what Dr. Valesky just said, as soon as everything is put in place, and there's a lot of different components, because we've even talked about, we've talked about, well, boy, we need a presentation on this Google Classroom thing.
Yeah.
And I think what Dr. Valesky just said is, paraphrasing what he said, maybe there's a little patience involved at this moment in time, and then, because if I wasn't a tech guy, I would be saying the same thing. Hey, I want to see what's going on. So I'm sure there's going to be a real big presentation, so you get a real good understanding of how the Google Classroom, with regard to all the components that the teachers are working on. For argument's sake, just within the Google Classroom, just a calendar piece, which some people like and some people don't like. But we were up at a workshop at St. Peter's College where the presentation on the calendar went on for 4 hours. Just one little component.
No, I'm not, please, I'm
Oh, I know you're not questioning, right.
questioning or expressing impatience, and fully understanding what Dr. Valesky said. I was just curious because you prefaced.
Right, prefaced it. He
by
just
giving
used
the-
that analogy so that oftentimes even teachers, the high-end teachers,
Got it.
don't get the attention that they need with regard to professional development. This workshop was geared towards the teacher who was, and there were, like I said, 30 of them. These people are advanced with regard to all of Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Sheets, everything. And so we, at the time, decided, let's focus on these people, because they're going to be the leaders in their respective buildings with regard to teaching, instructing, helping all the teachers, secretaries, middle management personnel, building principals who may have questions about how this all unfolds, because it is a radical change in what's happening in education.
No, thank you, Kevin. I just
I can't wait to explain.
misunderstood the analogy,
Yeah.
but now I get it. Thank you.
But it would be great to get a presentation on
Yes.
it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we all know what's going on.
Right.
4 hours on Google Calendar?
Go 4 hours on Google Calendar.
Sounds like they need a Google clock. That's a
So
long time.
our presentation will take a couple of nights for you, if you don't
Special
mind.
board meetings?
Yes, maybe special.
Maybe we could have denim days those days.
Maybe pajama days.
Yeah. Any other comments for the good of the cause? I just wanted to underscore the award that our financial department got this evening. I can't express enough how much everything that we do is functions with the assumption that that's always going to work well. I think we've almost gotten used to that.
Well, they always get it.
But they're getting cocky. But I do think it's worth mentioning, and they deserve a lot of credit. That entire department works really hard, and I don't think we would be able to do a fraction of what we could do
No,
without
but there was a
them.
point, that helps with lending, or borrowing and things of that
Yes.
nature, and financing. So it is a useful designation.
We're proud of you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, we do have need for closed session this evening, so I'd like to move that the Board of Education approve the following resolution, whereas the Board of Education must discuss matters which are not appropriate for discussion in a public meeting, and whereas these subjects are within the exceptions of the Open Public Meetings Act and are permitted to be discussed in closed session pursuant to NJSA 10412B, and whereas the Board of Education intends to discuss the following matters. Please bear with me as I scroll.
So
Pursuant to NJSA 10412B, subsection 8, any matter involving the employment, appointment, termination of employment, terms and conditions of employment, evaluation of the performance of, promotion or discipline of any specific prospective public officer or employee or current public officer or employee employed or appointed by a public body unless all individual employees or appointees whose rights could be adversely affected request in writing that such matter or matters be discussed at a public meeting. The nature of the matter discussed as specifically as possible without undermining the need for confidentiality is 1, New Jersey Division of Civil Rights, docket EM 04ME 65023, 2, the department chairperson for guidance position, and 3, the director of curriculum and instruction position. Pursuant to NJSA 10412B subsection 7, any pending or anticipated litigation or contract negotiation other than subsection B4 of NJSA 10-4-12, in which the public body is or may become a party. Any matters falling within the attorney-client privilege to the extent that confidentiality is required in order for the attorney to exercise his ethical duties as a lawyer. The nature of the matter described as specifically as possible without undermining the need for confidentiality is the Atikva International Academy Charter School appeal. Whereas the length of the discussion in closed session is estimated to be 30 minutes, after which the public meeting of the board shall reconvene and proceed with the business where formal action will be required. Now therefore be it resolved that the East Brunswick Board of Education will recess into closed session for only the above said subjects. And be it further resolved that the East Brunswick Board of Education hereby declares that its discussion of the aforesaid subjects will be made public at a time when the public's interest in disclosure is greater than any privacy or governmental interest being protected from disclosure in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act.
So, second.
Mrs. Becker, Mrs. Shaw. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Good evening, everybody. Thank you.